Hey, YouTube world, what is up? I hope you are having a fantabulous day. We return to you from our lovely closet abode. Please download, rate, review, and subscribe on all the various platforms which are available below. So, Shams Charania posted a fantastic article about Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and really Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz as well, but specifically the dynamic between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert and how they're maybe sparking some discontent related to the coronavirus situation, and how Donovan Mitchell may not be prepared or willing to forgive Rudy Gobert for everything that happened during their relationship, or as all the coronavirus stuff was going on. So what that means for the future of the Utah Jazz is really fascinating, because obviously Donovan Mitchell hasn't signed an extension yet, which makes a big difference when deciding, I guess we're just jumping to conclusions here because we don't have all the details. I would recommend reading the Shams article about this topic and how Utah may have an issue among its stars. For a team that was showing so much promise before all this kind of unraveled the season. They would have been the 5 seed again in the Western Conference. Mitchell has been consistently averaging more and more points throughout the previous seasons. Now, obviously, if you're given the choice between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and also obviously, as I said, we're skipping about 3 steps to he's immediately going to want out of Utah. But if he has a feud with Rudy Gobert, it may serve all interests for them to kind of, if coronavirus blew up the Utah Jazz, so be it. Now, obviously, if you're willing to pick between which one to keep between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, 10 times out of 10, you're picking Donovan Mitchell. Well, 9 times out of 10, you're picking Donovan Mitchell. Both of them made the All-Star team last year for the first time. Both are on the come-up for their physical primes, and unfortunately, this whole situation had to happen for both of them, for the sanctity of both their relationships and for the beneficiaries of being a fan of Utah, being a fan of the NBA, because they were the truest 1-2 punch. I feel like they were like discount LeBron and AD. They were the truest 1-2 punch in the league, where you could define that there's not a lot of difference between the two. You could go with both of them, and they're both equally valuable to that team. Now, Donovan Mitchell, 9 times out of 10, like I said, is the guy you're going to keep, given the choice between him and Gobert. But Donovan Mitchell has not signed his extension yet. Utah was working towards an extension. And if he's willing to commit to Utah, Utah will sign him emphatically. But if he doesn't want to play with Gobert, Utah's going to have to move off of him. Now, that is a tough situation because his value has never been lower. I would assume, given everything that's gone on, that he's now kind of the face of coronavirus for athletes and really America as a whole. He's not really, his trade value is not as high as it once was. They're reluctant to trade him, but it may be a situation where their hand is forced. And can they find a teammate that pairs well with Mitchell? Because it's hard to get star-level talent to Utah. Rudy Gobert was the 27th pick in his draft class. Donovan Mitchell was traded up to number 13 for Utah to be able to get him. It's really hard to find star-caliber talent in Utah. So the fascinating situation that's going to present itself is, what can they get back for Rudy Gobert? Does it resemble a rebuild-style situation? Do they become like the Suns, where they've paid this money to their star player, but it's not replicating any wins? Obviously, we're looking very far down the road. We should be focused on, is this dynamic reparable? But it really does tell a lot, and I think we're also starved for content a little bit. I think it does tell a lot that if Mitchell is not willing to work on the relationship with Gobert, that is more indicative of Mitchell himself and what his views are and how he views messing with his health, versus where Gobert stands, where there's no way to know which one gave the other one, but the fact that Gobert was joking around about it a lot has actually affected Mitchell deeper than just the microphone touching thing that we got to see. This goes to a deeper locker room level among the two players and among really a lot of his Utah teammates. It was also reported in that article that Rudy Gobert has totally ghosted the Utah Jazz at this point. Since his positive test and since the league shut down, he hasn't been in communication with anyone within the organization. I really feel bad for Rudy Gobert. Honest to God, like, the bad luck of being the face of this thing, it tears a lot of people down, especially when you're the face of something that is so unprecedented for all the wrong reasons, other than the fact, he tested positive for the virus. The fact that you're the face of this for so much scrutiny, it tears people down, and it ruins reputations, and I feel so bad for him, because honestly, we should not be crushing Rudy Gobert for anything. Rudy Gobert is a victim here. Rudy Gobert is scapegoated for everything that's going on here, and he hasn't, other than reckless and stupidity, he hasn't done anything wrong. So we should not be going after Rudy Gobert for any of this. We're scapegoating him because we're looking for someone to blame for a situation that was inevitably going to shut down the league, if not with Rudy Gobert 2 days later, 3 days later, a week later. We can scapegoat Rudy Gobert all we want, but it's really, I feel bad for the fact that he doesn't feel like he can face the music on what's happened through this situation. And if this is an irreparable situation, and obviously if the whole locker room is feeling the same way, Rudy's the one who has to go. If that's the situation that they find themselves in, I feel bad for Rudy Gobert, because his career is just launching. He's going to be great, but how he responds to this is really going to determine what his legacy will be. Coronavirus will not define his legacy. His legacy will be defined by what comes after this. And if we've had any inclination so far, it's not really a good outcome. We're not seeing good things in terms of what Rudy Gobert is feeling through all this, and how he's going to respond to being the first athlete to test positive for coronavirus, which is super unfortunate, because it's kind of paving the way for what's going to end up being a messy downfall, and honestly potentially ruining a person's career and ruining a person's life who had so much promise and was up here, and now maybe coming down here, because Rudy Gobert was happy to be in Utah. He had a fantastic dynamic with Donovan Mitchell, and if it's truly irreparable, I feel so bad for Rudy Gobert. Honest to God, like, it sucks to be in that position, and people can't really be trusted with your vulnerabilities, and even your teammates can't really be trusted with your vulnerabilities a lot. But I just feel really bad for Rudy Gobert if that situation is irreparable. Regardless, I would recommend going to read the Shams Charania article. It's actually extremely fascinating, and it gives you insight into the dynamic that may be going forward for one of the Western Conference powerhouses, and really one of the up-and-coming teams in the NBA.